The HS2 rail project, which would run through Buckinghamshire, has been thrown into doubt after the government announced an independent review of whether it should continue. The review will consider the costs, benefits and impact of building the line from London to Birmingham and then, of course, to Manchester and Leeds. Now, last month, HS2's chairman reportedly warned the total cost could rise by £30 billion, up from the current budget of £56 billion, although most experts seem to think £100 billion is closer to the figure. Joining me now is Martin Tett. Martin is the Conservative leader of Buckinghamshire County Council. Martin, very good afternoon to you.
Afternoon, Roberto. And how many years have we been discussing this topic?
It's far too long. You've campaigned long and hard and very publicly to try and prevent HS2 from happening. Are you uplifted by this news?
I'm pleased, but I'm not uplifted. And I'll tell you why. I mean, I'm delighted that we're going to have a review. I guess my concern, and I've looked through the terms of reference on the website, DFT and so on, it's a pretty broad-ranging review, which is great. But when you look at the composition of it, I mean, it's being led by a man who used to be the chairman of, guess what, HS2. So you've actually put in charge a man, effectively, who's going to check his own homework and say what a good job he did or didn't do, getting us to, at least a long way down the road towards where we are today.
OK. So, by the way, it should be you defending the government, not me. But the deputy, of this review...
I've always stood up for my local residents.
You have. But the deputy of this HS2 review is someone who is not a fan. So they've got some sort of balance there.
Well, who are you referring to?
Lord Berkeley, a civil engineer who worked on the construction of the Channel Tunnel and will act as the deputy in this review.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking through the panel here. I mean, you've got people who are, the leader of Dudley Borough Council, a local council leader, great, but, Dudley is a supporter of HS2. You've got Andy Street, who's the mayor of the West Midlands, again, another real cheerleader for HS2. Both Conservatives, great, but not exactly going to provide balance in terms of the politics of that. Chairman of Transport for the North, which again is one of the big cheerleaders for HS2. This panel does seem heavily weighted towards people who have a real predilection, for seeing HS2 delivered. So I've got to ask the question. I hope I'm wrong. I desperately hope I'm wrong. What objectivity are they really bringing to this?
The Transport Secretary and running Hatford MP Grant Shapps has asked the reviewers to just give him the facts on this. I mean, some might suggest that should have been the case a couple of years ago.
Well, absolutely. But we've been presenting the facts and analysing those facts now, as you know, for 8 years. We've talked about this so many times. We've had people who are pretty smart on the economics take the business case for this project apart at the seams on I don't know how many occasions. You remember the old story about, the only way the business case actually added up was because they reckoned that nobody worked on the train. So actually, from the moment you got on the train to the moment you got off it, you did nothing but stare out the window and do no work. So actually arriving 10 minutes earlier in Birmingham was worth, X billion to the national economy, because then you could work rather than go to the hotel and relax. Absolute utter nonsense to anybody in the real world. But that's the sort of economics that went into the business case initially. This business case will never ever stack up.
But have we gone too far down the line in this project to stop it now? £7 billion spent so far. And of course, the embarrassment internationally if we suddenly say we're going to stop it.
Well, one of the things they've got to look at in the terms of reference is what the cost of cancellation would be. So, it's not just what you've spent so far, but there may be fees involved in effectively, cancellation fees, let's put it, for all the various contractors and so on. So I'll be honest with you, the cost could be a lot higher than $7 billion, if they actually look at all the on-costs that are associated with potentially cancelling it. But my dad used to say, there's no point in throwing good money after bad. And if this thing is going to cost, and I believe it will cost something like £100 billion, then actually spending $7 billion and stopping there or thereabouts is better value than spending $100 billion and find you wasted your money.
If it is, we'll have to wait until the end of the autumn for this review. We will get this review by the end of the year. If it is, if the Transport Secretary comes out and says he is going to scrap it, what would you like to see done instead?
Well, we've always put forward a whole series of alternatives on this, and this was a whole group of councils that we very much united on this some years ago. We said, first of all, on the rail side of it, you've got to look at where the capacity problems actually are, and they're on the commuter routes into the main cities. So, you actually have to look at increasing capacity from areas like Hemel Hempstead and Milton Keynes rather than intercity. And the same if you go up north into Birmingham and into Leeds and Manchester. How do you improve the commuter experience, everyday experience by people trying to get into work in those cities? That's where you need to target things. And that doesn't just need to be rail, it could be buses and transport as well. And then you've also got to look at the need for travel. So, for example, particularly when you're outside the EU and you potentially are free from state aid restrictions, cabling up this country so that you've got terabytes worth of capacity for businesses around the country. So actually the need to move gets reduced as well. And that's better in terms of air pollution and carbon offset as well. So, there's a whole host of really good things you could be spending the best part of $100 billion on, which would bring real tangible improvements with great business cases.